It's the 17th day of September 2024. Welcome back, everybody. I'm going to be your host tonight. I'm Dana Durnford. That's not it. We'll get there. I'm Dana. How are you? And you can call in at 709-589-4406. And you can talk to me or Stinky the Nuke Tart if you want to. He still needs some repairs. I pushed myself a little too hard this week. We're going to talk about food tonight. Harrods in London, which is owned by I got that information coming up for you. The United Arabs Company is selling peaches from Fukushima, 3 for $100 US. This is TEPCO is being quoted. We're going to cover that. We're going to cover a bunch of headlines that I dug out last week from 2011 about baby food and other stuff, and try to bring it all together for you. Let's talk about me, my favorite subject, my favorite non-subject. Nuclear for Dummies. This is an update from YouTube how your channel did last month. I got 4 new subscribers. At this rate, it'll take me about 300 years to get 10,000 subscribers. 4 new. I got total views 6,946, and at the average amount of time people watched the video was 19 minutes. 136.8 thousand minutes. And I mean, the average viewer watched 19 minutes. Does anybody really believe any of this? The show last night was 138.59. And just let me... so the show tonight is the 17th of September 2024. I just want to cover some details from last night. The showed statistics. It was 138.59 minutes. So 9 hours later, 138.59 minutes. And then I didn't take a screen capture, but 205 views 8 hours ago. That didn't change in 8 hours. And at 21 hours, I still had 205 views. So clearly, they have throttled my video, right? They throttle all my videos. And we're going to have to leave YouTube. We're going to have to take everything off YouTube because the videos goes from 138.59 to 139.20, which means the video got 21 minutes longer, 12. And this always happens 12 hours later. The chat room doesn't show up for 12 hours. The list goes on and on. And so I'm seriously considering taking down my YouTube channel because I know they're putting software in my videos to track people with. So if you can't watch it in the first 12 hours, you probably shouldn't watch my video. And we're just going to have to move somewhere else. We're not welcomed anywhere anyway, because we talk about nuclear, so we're ostracized by a public relations firm that has over $1 billion a year to torment people with. And they've done it's like the amount of evil that the nuclear industry has actually done to me, physically done to me, is you have to write 3 or 4 books and do 4 or 5 movies just to cover it all. Japan baby formula shows radiation contamination. Japan baby formula. baby formula. Well, 11 atoms a kilogram, you see permanent damage to children's hearts, right? Of just cesium-137. You can't just have cesium-137. Radiation contamination has been found in the leading brand of Japanese baby formula. And so this headline, I tracked a whole bunch of these stories, because the original story that I found, I can't remember, was AP or something. Was missing when I clicked on the link, right? And so I looked it all up, and I started finding a bunch of other medias that covered it. It most likely followed from the country's crippled nuclear plant, most likely. And that's the problem, right? A journalist is somebody whose job is to cut your throat, make you incompetent and incapable of comprehending the truth, right? So if you got children and you go to the media trying to understand what's going on, you're going to feed your baby this stuff because you're going to be very complacent from that indoctrination machine. They really are the most evil people imaginable for what they do for a living. They know, and what they did, there's no illusions about what they're doing. They know what they're doing is unbelievably evil. Country's crippled, and calling it crippled. This is a journalist. A journalist is somebody that hates you and everything else, and will do anything to get in front of their TV studio and pretend that they're human. And clearly, anybody that knows them knows they got nothing to do with the human attributes. So you remember this headline? Fukushima Medical University signed a secrecy pact with the International Atomic Energy Agency January the 1st, 2014. This is very important. And a couple of months back, they attacked my system. And my system is a very sophisticated system. And so I back up a lot of stuff. But I don't keep it backed up to date. And so these headlines, they took down a whole session that I had built over a whole year. I had copied it and saved it, so I was able to retrieve most of it. But it took a while. But clearly this was an attack they had done on me. It's reporting that the results of the investigation dealing with the Fukushima Prefectural government, the Medical University in Fukushima Prefecture, and the International Atomic Energy Agency, also known as United Nations, has no sovereignty over any country. And the people that work there seem to be the worst that humans can offer. They're paid enormous amount of money to cut your throat and your children's throat at every opportunity. And they spend all day and their entire life doing that to you and your loved ones. And just because they're not pointing a gun at you, don't mean they're not murdering you. There had been ongoing suspicions about the openness and honesty of what has been going on in Japan. The openness and honesty of what has been going on in Japan. Nuclear can only survive by consuming everything, all life. It can't survive without destroying everything each day. Tokyo Shinbun had confirmed that these government entities did sign a secrecy agreement with the International Atomic Energy Agency, a secrecy agreement with the Medical University in Fukushima Prefecture and the Fukushima government and the country's government. And that the Fukushima Medical University, which signed a secrecy agreement with the International Atomic Energy Agency, has been the main source of all public data on exposure, has been dictating what medical care many in the region were allowed to receive related to radiation issues. These are demons. Calling them anything less is a crime on itself. Remember, they picked up 30 million one-ton bags in that prefecture, which is only 3% of the land, I might add, where they wanted people to be complacent enough to move back to. Both the prefecture and the medical university have been subject to growing distrust from the public due to their efforts to downplay problems and withhold information. Problems! To even frame this narrative as a problem when it's a catastrophic event for everything with replicating cells. I sometimes I lose faith with humans, I must admit. Because I cover this all day, every day, 7 days a week. And I do 5 shows a week. But I'm deep down this rabbit hole for over 2 decades. And I haven't found a single redeeming quality to the industry. Nothing. In fact, every dealing I've had with the industry can only be described as gobblish goblins, sadistic demons. And that's being polite. I'm being polite when I say that, by the way. Due to the censorship on YouTube, if I say what I really feel. A memorandum of understanding with an unelected corporation that has no sovereignty over any country. In December of 2013, Fukushima Prefecture signed respectively in October of that year, 2014. That's the International Atomic Energy Agency. Every time you look at the International Atomic Energy Agency, you'll see these representatives, beautiful $5,000 suits and dirty underwear, perfectly clean cut and groomed nails, the whole line. Expensive jewelry, and very educated, incredible educations. Unbelievable educations. But the most revolting parasitic creatures conceivable once you start realizing who they are and what they're actually doing. They're literally gone to war with humanity, and the world is sleeping as this is taking place. They're lulled into this complacency of these very soft-spoken, long-legged scumbags. In Fukushima Prefecture, the Prefectural University of Medicine had concluded the International Atomic Energy Agency for the Health Impact Study Prefecture, radiation for the management of radioactive waste and decontamination. For the Health Impact Study Prefecture, radiation for the management of radioactive waste and decontamination. I can't look at a International Atomic Energy Agency's representative. There's many different subsidies, right? The IAEA, Unclear ERPA, the IPRC, and even the World Health Organization. There seems like 500 of these subsidy, and they have infiltrated every facet of your lives worldwide. Very slick and very coordinated, very methodical. And their job, as far as they're concerned, is to exterminate all species and all humans except for them, including their own loved ones. When you look at an academic today, first you got to consider this is who they are before you consider anything else. You have to prove that they're not monsters. And 99% of them cannot prove that they're not monsters. There was a secret language specified in the memorandum. A secret language. You're talking about, one of the most prolific producers of rice on the planet, ships are worldwide, and they have all this secrecy going on in the nuclear wasteland. And for years and years and years and years, we've seen all kinds of books and documentaries. It was everyone on their propaganda. And I mean the worst kinds of propaganda. We've seen worldwide media claiming that they're in fuel pools of buildings that don't even exist. For thyroid cancers in children, International Atomic Energy or province side, secret designated as such to stir up anxiety of residents. They want to stir up the anxiety of the residents. Just let me go down this rabbit hole just a little bit further for you, actually, because that's a particularly important story. It might take me a second. I'll get it right in a second. Here we go. I just want to talk about the thyroid for a second. It's hard to comprehend how the world is still asleep. Just give me a minute. The only problem I got is I got way too much documentation. In some ways I haven't got enough. Clearly that's true. But the problem is that everything is so important in this story. Everything is so freaking important. And everybody's in denial, right? Nuclear radiation is the most carcinogenic thing that exists. I'm going to have to go through. There's one headline here. Let me try something else maybe. I think we'll get it this time. There we go. I got a lot of these stories on thyroid. Pre-Fukushima is 1 to 2 per million children would have thyroid tumors. The thyroid of an adult is 3 by 5 centimeters, but of a child, it's 1 by 2 centimeters or so. And so the tumors on the children are around 2 centimeters on their thyroid, which produces radio hormones for your bodies, and now will be producing radioactive hormones for the rest of their lives. And their complicated life now. But 13,646 out of 38,000 had tumors around 2 centimeters on a thyroid gland that is only 2 centimeters. And the thyroid regulates the function of your entire body with hormones. And it feeds those hormones to the pituitary gland and everywhere else. So, if it used to be 1 to 2 per million, so when you scale it up now, it's 358,000 out of a million will be producing radioactive hormones for the rest of their lives. And their complicated lives. And then when you got so much radiation that you have that particular attribute, then your skeleton, particularly for the children, rather producing stem cells, because of their growth and that, for many, many years to come, it means they're producing not only radioactive hormones, but radioactive stem cells for the rest of their lives. And then scale that back into the insect population, animal population, and this is why you're not cleaning your windshields no more. But an academic is someone you're supposed to fear. Like, they're cowards, don't get me wrong, they're not going to physically do nothing to you. These are cowards. If you confront them, they'll defecate in their pants. They'll reach down and spread it all over their body, so you'll be revolted and won't beat them up. Right? In their mind, you want to beat them up. These are cowards, but they're murderous cowards. They're serial killers in every sense of the word, and they're worse than each of them are worse than any serial killer in history that we know of, by orders of magnitudes. On top of that. These are genocidal, mass-murdering monsters who have a deficiency in their brain and then cut out of the herd at the universities because they're missing the human experience. And so they're perfect. They look like a normal human, but they don't have the actual attributes that would cause any issues. They can train them to be genocidal machines, and they're completely compliant. The degenerate International Atomic Energy Agency has compiled a report, and there was no modulation of health by exposures in the Chernobyl. Of course, this is absurd to suggest that. If you look at the absurd, well, if you go back and look at my presentations on Chernobyl from earlier this year on the anniversary, and last year, I think last year was 900 studies of different things they study from Chernobyl of radioactive fallout. You don't do that kind of study if there's no adverse side effects. You do it because it has affected every facet of the ecosystem. They studied every facet of the ecosystem, and I have the academic studies to show you they've done that. And then you don't need the studies to read the studies to extrapolate what's going on. You just need the ticker tape, the headlines of the studies, to really pull that picture together. And that's what I've done for you last year and this year. So this is Fukushima. They're growing food right alongside of thousands of one-ton bags of radiation in a nuclear wasteland. I can't comprehend how the world can pretend this picture doesn't exist. I can't imagine pre-Fukushima if a picture like this showed up that the world wouldn't freak out. And yet we got silence worldwide. We do have the legacy headlines from the original stuff. Muto Haruko, head of the Fukushima nuclear power plant prosecution team, is concerned. There's a precedent that the hidden information about the health effects of Chernobyl, International Atomic Energy Agency, Fukushima, also becomes Ninomia, which is the cover-up, right? That's your average professor right there in the university. It doesn't look that way because they look human, but clearly what they're doing, the students will come out and their job is to destroy you and your health. That's their job. That's what they do, and that's all they know how to do, and that's what makes them happy. Nuclear establishment takes over Fukushima Medical University. Now, not my best day today. I pushed it too hard this week, I think. I don't think I know. Tomorrow's the last day of summer. And what I mean by that, tomorrow is the last day of high double digits temperatures. After that, it's single digits. It's going to be brutal. And so tomorrow I got to do a bunch of work on the equipment I got. I picked up, James Lucid donated $200. I forgot to mention that last night on Sunday. And I went and picked up some other stuff that I'm lacking, and also $100 worth of Tremclad rust paint and some flap disc and grinding discs and stuff like that. And so what I got to do tomorrow is I got to get under all the equipment, grind off any rust I can find, and spray it, because tomorrow is going to be brutal, and I'm just not healthy enough to do it, but I got no one else to do it for me. And I can't afford to pay someone to do it. I got to do it, and I'm grateful to be able to do it, so I'm going to do it. But I shouldn't do it because I'm not very healthy. I just went through hell. But I'll just take my time. And I got 4 of those ramps, so I can drive the equipment up on the ramps. And in the case of the truck, I got all 4 wheels will be off the ground. It'll make it easier for me anyway. And then I got to use the compressor and the sprayer, because painting it, I won't have enough energy to do it. And it'll spray everything. And that should last us till next spring anyway. Keep the equipment from falling apart. And so I'm not sure how tomorrow night's going to play out, because I'm going to be busted up tomorrow night. But I already got a show prepared for tomorrow night. And yesterday I created 200 of these pictures. Well, not that one in particular. Yeah, 200 pictures of journalists. And a couple of days before the weekend, I had created 600 pictures. So that when I was telling the story for this week and next week, I would have these types of pictures to put in there. Now, I've dedicated every day of my life for post-Fukushima, and before Fukushima, but certainly post-Fukushima, to unraveling the truth and sharing the truth. And I'm censored so much, it's surreal, but we got no choice. I have to do it, and this is the best platform at the time, right? I'm very disappointed that there's so many scumbags in this industry. I'm not surprised anymore because we've been at this a very long time. But I'm still very disappointed by these people that they hate humanity and the species so much they're willing to exterminate everything so they can tell their friends and families and their idiot loved ones who are stupid enough to love them, that pretend that they're actually good people, right? These are not good people. Anybody in the nuclear industry has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. These are parasitic vultures and monsters. They really are human monsters in every sense of that word. We have never seen nothing but that from them in all these years. And sometimes for months at a time, we'll do stories. We'll cover a 24-hour news cycle every day, fresh news each day. And we'll only cover the stories where they're telling a lie, which is every single story. And you can't cover every single story. And anybody who's been around knows what I'm talking about and knows how surreal that is. This whole industry, which controls the life of the whole planet and can snuff out life on the whole planet, has spent the last 80 years sticking you in the eye with a stick every time you looked at them. More agreements have been inked between the Fukushima Medical University International Nuclear Mafia. It's not international. That is nuclear. Nuclear is, and calling it a mafia is being polite. These are literally demons from a different realm. You know, if somebody was to come out and have proof that they were aliens from a different species or something, that would not surprise anybody that's paying attention. It would make sense, actually. It's hard to imagine humans can be as evil as these people are. That's why I say that. But what we're seeing symmetrically for so long is an agenda to exterminate everything on the planet in increments over time through radioactive fallout, particularly from nuclear power plants and nuclear dumps. All nuclear fuel is splitting atoms with no containment into the environment, and all nuclear plants are surrounded by farms. As far as you can see, what do you really think is going on? If they're not trying to exterminate you. Do you think it's an accident that every single nuclear plant is surrounded by farms? Nuclear establishment takes over the Fukushima Medical University. Fukushima Medical University signed agreement with the ICRP, International Commission on Radiation Protection, which is United Nations. Another United Nations. So like the ICRP, the International Atomic Energy Agency, IRPA, UNSCLEAR, and they all back each other up, but they don't say, hey, we're all United Nations. You have all these preeminent, pristine organizations, incredibly funded, and they're all the same organization. They're all UN, which is a military-industrial complex, according to Eisenhower, and is the New World Order, according to George Bush Sr. Many others, of course. Fukushima Medical University also created visiting professor positions for some International Atomic Energy Agency staff. So the medical university, in order to give street creds to the International Atomic Energy Agency, created visiting professor so that the International Atomic Energy Agency goes to the universities And these are monsters, but they're disguised as a professor. And this is something we see blatant all the time for many, many years. It's very clear what's going on. And so they captured the universities, captured your medias, captured Hollywood, captured key positions in your governments. And if you don't fight back, you don't have any time left. You need to fight back. You've got no time left. You're so far down this rabbit hole, you need to fight back. That's the only option you got left, is to fight back. They've captured everything. But they still haven't captured, because the story's never been talked about. The minute the story, if the story was to come out in the alternative medias and the people were to get a glimpse of what this whole bloody nightmare actually is going on, that's it for nuclear. There's going to be a bloody revolution immediately. Because they hid it for 80 years. I have no doubt people can wake up. I don't doubt that at all. The International Atomic, people at the International Atomic Energy Agency, we've covered literally over 1,000 of them over the years. We've never found a single one. Well, there was some special rapports that did have some redeeming qualities, but anybody that was a permanent representative of the International Atomic Energy Agency was the lowest form of life conceivable. And if you look at their previous history, you'll see why the International Atomic Energy Agency hired them. While the Fukushima Medical University has been busy denying the health risk from the nuclear disaster, imagine that the Fukushima Medical University in Fukushima Prefecture, is the biggest threat to the Fukushima Prefecture, the people. Their job is to gut everybody in that prefecture, destroy their health, make sure they can't have a future, destroy their children. That's their job. And they got their papers from the International Atomic Energy Agency. Their job is to destroy you and your health and your loved ones. That's their job. And they love their job. These are literally sadistic demons. It's terrifying that the world is still asleep. It's horrifying. Japan baby formula radiation fears raised as early as mid-November. This is December 2011. And we've covered this many times over the years. In a statement made regarding his decision to recall the products, said the level of cesium, 22 to 31 atoms per kilogram, are considered to have no adverse effects on infants. 11 atoms per kilogram, becquerels per kilogram. Think of a becquerel as an atom, an anthropogenic man-made atom that's pulsing energy almost at the speed of light every second. So 22 to 31, 11 atoms will cause permanent heart damage to a young child, let alone an infant. And this is what I mean. The media comes out and sells you that narrative and then lies in every step of the way. And when you look a little bit closer, you realize that's a demon. Are considered to have no, like a single atom gets in your body attacks it for the rest of your life with white blood cells and tries to build a tumor around it. It could take a couple of years, could take a couple of decades, could take 5 decades, but eventually it'll build a tumor around it. It'll attack it every second for the rest of your life with white blood cells. So as the baby's bioaccumulating this, it's impossible for them not to have catastrophic health problems for the rest of their lives and short lives. It's not considered to have no adverse effects on infants, even if the product is consumed daily, because they're below the guideline safety set up by the food hygiene regulations. Again, right? They say that as if here's the stamp and that's it. You don't have to accept any of this. their guidelines, of course, were elevated after every accident. And then after Fukushima, they raised it to catastrophic numbers. So did the United States and Europe, by the way, and Canada. And they raised it double what Japan raised it. And that way Japan would say, well, America's double ours, or EU's double our safety standards, so we're better, we're safer than them. Again, all of these lies are cooked up by the International Atomic Energy Agency. It's impossible to comprehend that they got away with it this long. An academic and a journalist's job is to cut your throat. That's their job. And they know it. They got no illusions about it either. And anybody that is really good at it, or at least participates in it, is rewarded handsomely. And that's good enough for these subhumans. They'll do it they'll do it. They'll attack me for free. If you go and look up my name, you'll find the most vile things they say that they have said about me before you find anything that I say. You'll find all their propaganda for over a decade. You'll find all of it. But you very rarely find anything with me. Contamination caused by heated atmospheric air. So they're saying that the baby food is contaminated. I'll just go through it with you because then we're going to cover peaches at Harrods right away, coming up in a couple more clicks. It's therefore considered that the contamination was caused by the drying process at the food plant, involves exposure to large amounts of heated atmospheric air, and that air contained radioactive contaminants as a result of the nuclear fallout from Fukushima. So what they're trying to say is that the baby food wasn't contaminated. The air they were using to dry the baby food was contaminated. And simply both of them are contaminated, not just one. And this is why it's so contaminated. And then quite a few of these stories coming up tonight and tomorrow night we'll get through. Why are these people that call themselves journalists not journalists? Why are they spending incredible efforts and time and energy in destroying your life and your children and your loved ones and your friends and your families? Harrods starts selling Fukushima peaches. And so they got little tiny chunks there. This is in London. This is apparently orchestrated by TEPCO. And if you're going shopping there, you got tons of money. You don't give a shit about money. And so most likely these peaches never came from Fukushima. A luxury department store, and this stuff is crazy. You're going to love some of this stuff. This stuff coming up is just, it's priceless. The public relation firms went heavy in the comments section on these stories. It's really a spectacle. We're going to get to that right away on this story here. A luxury department store in London started selling peaches grown in Fukushima, $400 US. A tasting event was held to show how sweet and juicy the radioactive peaches are. It's the first time for Fukushima peaches to be sold. They've been selling Fukushima products. They never stopped. They banned some products, but they kept lots of other products being sold. They're radioactive products. 3 peaches in a gift box sells for 80 sterlings. And you can see Fukushima on their idiot outfit. 3 peaches in a gift box sells for 80 euros or 80 sterlings rather. The sale, that's a sale apparently, 3 for $100. And clearly no one's going to rush in. Look, see, they got these 3 women there. And they both got 2 of them over there got the same necklace. Look at that. Golden earrings on this one. I'm sure all 3 of them now, as soon as they seen it, they couldn't help themselves and rushed over. Like if you got that much money, you know Fukushima. You're not eating something from Fukushima. As part of a campaign by the Tokyo Electric Power Company. There's the head of TEPCO right there. Breaking news. It's like a banana and a potato chip and walking in the sunshine and climbing a mountain and flying on an airplane. 80 years, generation after generation of medias and academics regurgitating that narrative. But this is how you should look at these, at a journalist or an academic or a news reporter, because that's who they are. That's how you should see them. And anybody that's been around here, that's how they see them. So the sale is part of a campaign by Tokyo Electric Power Company to promote food from a nuclear wasteland. So the journalist that wrote the story gets a big kickback. That's how they make their paychecks, is selling you death. 80 years of telling you it's like a banana. An effort to help the prefecture recover. You can't help a prefecture that's a nuclear wasteland when they picked up 30 million one-ton bags. You can't help that recover because you can't recover. Here's what I created over 3,000 pictures, and a lot of them are the one-ton bags because there was 150,000 sites where they stored the bags, 30 million one-ton bags. But there's less than 1,000 pictures like this. And so I got to create 149,000 pictures eventually to articulate. But see, that's a journalist. That's what we've seen of every journalist now for 80 years. Shut up and listen to me, it's like a banana. Now go down and buy some of that food, eat it, get sick and fucking die. They didn't abandon these towns because it's like a banana, okay? Or a potato chip, or walking in the sunshine. People didn't abandon these towns willingly. And if the truth was known, they should have abandoned Okuma and Futaba and the rest of the communities, Nami and that are close by, as soon as they built the plant. Because the minute you took fuel out of the reactor core and put it in the fuel pool, it's hemorrhaging radiation into your community forever. It never stops splitting atoms. And when you consider how many atoms they're splitting to boil water to power 1 million homes and businesses, you take that out and put it in the fuel pool, it's still splitting those atoms. There's no containment. That's released directly now into the biosphere and the ecosystem. It's an unbelievable betrayal. It's an unacceptable betrayal. The whole world, the entire planet should be gone to war against everybody in that nuclear industry. Every man, woman, and child on this planet should be hell-bent on destroying the nuclear industry and everybody in it. If they understood what was going on for the last 80 years, this entire planet would pick up. This entire planet would beat the shit out of friggin' nuclear. I still got some work to do on Stinky, the nuke turret. We're going to get him up and running. Maybe the weekend I'll get the work done. I got a feeling by tomorrow I won't be in very good shape, but I got to get the work done. I'm definitely not healthy enough to do it, but I got to get it done. So, woe is me. Whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. The Fukushima Prefectural Association in London and Japan External Trade Organization cooperated in the sale of peaches. The Fukushima Prefectural Association in London. So London has a Fukushima Prefectural Association. Their job is to import food and assimilate it into your supermarkets, your restaurants, your corner stores, and your children's school lunches. That's their job. And in Japan, the degenerate External Trade Organization cooperated in the sale, and which was Tokyo Electric Company promoted the food from Fukushima, who shouldn't exist. This is a corporation. And is now acting as a government and an oligarch. In reality, they're a straw man, right? So because I use AI a lot, when I say make me a picture of a journalist, this is what it spits out. Because it knows what a journalist is. Now, if I say make a picture of dead whales on a beach with nuclear scientists, it'll give me a cartoon. It won't give me a real lifelike picture. And so I have to deceive it. I have to do all kinds of different... Show me a whale sleeping on a beach and slowly build a scientist and blah, blah, blah. Degenerate monstrous Fukushima, idiot Fukushima, is the second largest producer of radioactive peaches in Japan with a share of 26%. Like, you picked up 30 million one-ton bags in a nuclear wasteland, which is only 3% of the land, by the way. And you can't quantify that by saying it's a cleanup. By putting topsoil in a bag is not a definition of cleaning up. The entire prefecture should be abandoned. There should be a 30-foot fence around the entire prefecture and robot guards because it's too dangerous for humans to be there. They keep people out. Peach producers in Fukushima have been struggling with reputational damage. So how can you struggle with reputational damage when you picked up 30 million one-ton bags of radiation? Your biggest enemy, of course, is a journalist. That's why you can't have a future. That's why the majority of your loved ones have died already. And that's why very few people you know are healthy, is because of journalists. Journalist's job is to cut your throat and everybody else's throat, their children's throat, all their friends and family's throat, and then tell them that they love them and that they're there for them every day. Their job is they're sleeper cells against humanity and the 8 million species. Go read this story. Playing past the parcel with Fukushima. 30 million tons of radioactive waste will eventually be moved to yet another interim storage facility near the crippled. And when you call these destroyed buildings crippled, you should spend 5 years in jail if you're a journalist. And they're talking about bags. The bags deteriorate after 3 years, meaning the waste has to be repackaged regularly. You can't repackage these bags. You're talking 30 million one-ton bags. Imagine having 30 million one-ton pickup trucks, and you got to control the keys of all that. Imagine 30 million one-ton trucks with a one-ton bag in the back of each truck, bumper to bumper. It's 5 rows of traffic wrapped around the entire planet. The entire planet. The entire planet. And imagine that they're growing food right alongside of one-ton bags of radiation. These pictures, whenever you see these pictures, these are from the media. These are from the scumbags themselves who are trying to make you complacent. How can you be struggling with reputational damage from the peach producers in a nuclear wasteland? Like, the farmers clearly should be shot on sight. You would expect there to be a lot of snipers shooting any farmer that's doing that, because that's mass genocide to grow food in a nuclear wasteland. It's genocide to ship it. You can pretend it's not, but it is. Because you're only pretending. If you say it's not genocide, you're pretending. Because anybody clearly that made it this far in the video knows what I'm talking about and knows this is a biological weapon. Which, coincidentally, is the poll tonight that I still never got to, did I? Should nuclear-powered disease factories, radioactive fallout, be considered a biological weapon of mass destruction? Well, how can you call it anything else but a weapon of mass destruction? How can you consider it to be anything but a weapon of mass destruction? And a biological weapon that never goes away. And when you die from the radiation, if they incinerate your body, cremate you, you liberate that radiation back into the environment to go hunt down somebody else and destroy their health and murder them and devastate their friends and families and loved ones. But you dress somebody up in a suit and tie and put them in front of a media studio with all the bling and tell them they're important. They will cut your throat. And we know that because that's what we see all day, every day. And to suggest Fukushima is struggling with reputational damage, these are murderers. there's no other way to do. These are genocidal, mass murdering serial killers. A farmer is a serial killer in Japan, or around any nuclear plant on the planet. That is a serial killer, whether they know it or not. They're serial killers. You can't be nothing but a serial killer. If you're growing food within 50 miles of a nuclear disease factory, you're a serial killer. There are currently 105. That was 2019. 2016 or 17, there was 150,000 sites. In 2019, there was 105,000 sites like this. 105,000. 105,000. And that's just 3% of the Fukushima Prefecture. Fukushima Prefecture is not the only prefecture that was buried, blanketed in perpetual radioactive fallout. And, you know, he gets his picture taken in front of 1 ton bags of radiation, thinks he's cool. Look at him. He's a good-looking young man, but he's literally the epitome of stupid. Like, if you go anywhere near 1 ton bags of radiation, you're literally a moron, unfortunately. He's smart enough to be able to buy a suit. He's smart enough to raise the money and get himself a surfboard. But he's incompetent beyond comprehension to stand up alongside of 1 ton bags and swim off this coastline where radiation does nothing but pour into the ocean for the entire time. Like, he never went there in the middle of the prefecture and got his picture taken. He's right on the coastline. After his picture, he's going to go out and get in the water in a nuclear wasteland. And he's going to do that because there's so many of these creatures out there cutting his throat. He's incapable of making a rational decision. He had to drive past these abandoned communities and millions of 1 ton bags of radiation, 105,000 different sites like that, to get to that one so he can go surfing. That's the epitome of, oh my goodness. Well, just because, and so when he's like sense the meltdown, these reactors still haven't stopped hemorrhaging radiation into the environment. And they don't even put meltdowns, they put meltdown. Again, right? A journalist is somebody whose job is to their job is to cut your throat. That's a journalist. A journalist's job is to cut your throat and get a couple of $100 for it. Does this look like meltdown or meltdowns? The buildings are completely gone. These were 19-story, 65-meter, 190-foot buildings, 19-story buildings. 190 feet tall. Is your house 190 feet tall? The buildings are completely gone. And the problem is you got journalists who takes advantage of your inability to understand the big picture. And so they can get their potato chips and their potato chips and their bananas. At TEPCO's Fukushima #1 nuclear power plant. They hope the campaign in Britain will help increase the sales of Fukushima peaches and improve their brand image. If you're growing food in the Fukushima Prefecture, you're within spitting distance of stuff like this. It's impossible not to be a nuclear wasteland anywhere in that prefecture, let alone anywhere in northern Japan, including Tokyo. It's impossible for it not to be a nuclear wasteland. The numbers in Tokyo, are just heartbreaking. Fukushima peaches go on sale at London luxury department store Harrods. And so they just recycle these stories everywhere. Start selling white peaches from a nuclear wasteland. The Sakura peach from the nuclear wasteland. You know, I remember I contacted the Canadian Embassy in Japan a long time ago. And I was going to open up a fish plant myself and just harvest sea urchins. And Japan is basically the biggest buyer of sea urchins. And Japan has a whole lot of dirty secrets when it comes to selling seafood. But one of the things I had put into my list was I was going to have chefs in Japan. So when I flew the product to Japan, the chefs would lay it out in the trays really pretty so I can bid the highest prices. And typically that stuff sold for $1,400 a kilogram. And unfortunately, I ended up getting injured diving. That was the end of Dana as a diver in that particular thing. And thank goodness I did, right? Because I got educated, and now I'm here going to war with a small group of people for the rest of humanity and whatever species manages to survive it. Owned by Harrods Ltd, a company currently owned by the state of Qatar via sovereign wealth fund, the Qatar Investment Authority. So Harrods, which is selling the peaches, is owned by the Qatar Investment Authority, poisoning the people in London with, because once you get the one in the door, the rest of the nuclear food goes in the door too, right? Following denial that it was for sale, Harrods has sold to Qatar Holding the sovereign wealth fund of the state of Qatar in May 2010, just before Fukushima. Sale campaign is part of a Tokyo Electric Power Company's holding public relation effort to eliminate. They got over $1 billion themselves just for public relation stuff. To eliminate the negative rumors about the safety of the food caused by the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant disaster. How can you call it a disaster? Why can't you call it nuclear meltdowns and loss of all the inventories from the fuel pools and the reactor cores? Because a journalist's job is to cut your throat. That's a journalist's job. A journalist is not your friend. Their job, cut your throat. And they're really good at it. They're the best that the university can find. One woman who tried the peaches said they're not too sweet, they're tastier than the peaches I usually eat. And this is a common thing we hear with radioactive food. Oh, it's so tasty. But imagine how sick you got to be a journalist to regurgitate that. Imagine, because a journalist knows the difference. So when you go to the comment section, you start seeing all the scumbags. And so the first comment was, I haven't brought anything from Fukushima since that fateful day. Yes, plenty of other food. Having said that, safe or not, I'm not about to spend £80 on for 3 peaches, a total ripoff. Yes, plenty of other food. So they haven't bought anything from Fukushima, but they bought food from Japan, is what they're suggesting. So then Isabel says, Pukey too. I haven't bought anything from Fukushima. She says, I have, and I haven't died once. And I haven't died once. And this is a picture we got of her, actually. That's actually her. Imagine what kind of lowlife you are to write that particular comment, though. Imagine what kind of degenerate you got to be to write that type of comment. To manipulate people into buying food from a nuclear wasteland. Imagine what kind of worthless human you got to be to put a comment like that there. Imagine how evil you actually got to be to put a comment like that. And I haven't died once. Data says nobody's downplaying anything, but there's no agricultural in the area of Fukushima with elevated radiation. Really, there's 150,000 sites like this around the plant. They're growing food, and I showed you the pictures earlier of the farms right in the no-go zone itself, right by the plant. And you know, Kuma, and I've covered many stories about it over the years, in recent years, of them going into the ghost town to check their farms because they're growing food there. And then they would come back every week, and then they would harvest it and sell it. They can't live there because it's a nuclear wasteland, but they're growing food and shipping it. And even invoke a safe cast, and I absolutely despise safe casts. These are the most revolting parasites I've ever seen. It was a group of American academics went down there and took over, and the Japanese let them stay there and set up shop. Why do you think they done that? The homemade Geiger counters. These are the lowest form of life you can imagine. These people from Safecast. And they've done quite well for themselves. They're on the stock markets now. They have other companies now where you can buy these devices that checks the air quality in your community and feeds back into their grid. They're gone global. They're so evil. They're so insidiously, and there's evidence to suggest they're the reason my other site with 24,000 plus subscribers was taken down. Was Safecast, Asby Brown, and a few more of them. There's strong evidence suggesting that's who done it to me. A decade of work there, all those research expeditions from British Columbia to Alaska, gone with the stroke of a pen, with the stroke of a button. Imagine how stupid you got to be to have a job like that. How disconnected from any type of reality you got to be to work in the nuclear industry is incredible. But to get those jobs, you really got to be the lower forms of life. He said, do you know that every single bag of rice from Fukushima is tested? No, it's not. You despicable piece of shit that said that. Data said nobody's downplaying anything. Japan must be the only place in the world with several million atoms of radioactive isotopes in urban areas, and an incomparable highly radioactive blue algae on the school routes. New Scientist calls it scaremongering. Scaremongering about Fukushima radiation is damaging. What was the date on that story? September 2011. Like an actual nuclear wasteland where everything is radioactive. That's what we're talking about. According to the Ministry of Environment's own website, random monitoring has occurred from fiscal 2020 onwards. No, random has always been what's happened. We've been covering it for years and years and years. Officials back from Fukushima, an invisible blanket of death covers everything. And it's a nightmare. Like, the reality of it is, you cannot clean up radioactive fallout. And when you have multiple reactors and 8 fuel pools, around 38 reactor cores burn up or melt down, both, it's going to be always emissions coming out of there. And serious amounts of emissions we're talking about. Catastrophic amounts of emissions. Data says, I stand corrected. All rice from the areas under evacuations, which basically amounts to the ones with elevated radiation of Fukushima, is inspected. So he's suggesting that only the evacuated zones have radiation, but they're inspected. Well, like, if you're evacuated, why are you growing food in an evacuated zone? Right? If it's not safe to live there, it's not safe to grow food there. But that's what that comment, that idiot, whoever posted, that moron that posted that comment. Over 30,000 square kilometers in Japan is blanketed by radioactive cesium. When you see an A in it, you're talking about the British influence. And the British nuclear industry, everything in the British nuclear industry, well, I'm not going to say it because it's not, I got nothing nice to say. And I mean nothing nice to say about the British nuclear industry. I despise everything about these people. They're not people. They got none of the attributes of a human whatsoever. All rice from the area under evacuation amounts to the ones with elevated radiation. So they're growing food in a nuclear wasteland, is what he's saying. And Japan journalist, plutonium escaped the Fukushima reactors as a gas. It was a colossal 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures inside. Can't be detected with Geiger counters. Well, plutonium killed all the dogs in all the studies, right? all the dogs in all the studies. And they died typically of 3 tumors: the lungs, the liver, and the skeleton. And the majority of them died from tumors or cancer to the skeleton, to the bones. Because you can't get painkillers for that stuff, so it's a miserable, horrifying way to die. And if you're eating food from Japan, that's going to happen to you at some point. And your children and your friends and your families. Areas under evacuations is inspected the food. So there's no one can live there, but they're growing food. But don't worry, because it's inspected. Imagine how stupid that person is to put that particular comment there. Imagine what kind of idiot that guy actually is. If you work for the nuclear industry, you're an idiot anyway. Incredible education, but that don't mean you're smart. Just because you regurgitate a book. Government model shows Fukushima radioactive gas near Tokyo skyrocketed 10 billion times normal. There is no such thing as normal. There's post-weapons fallout. You want to call that normal? That's very dishonest. Very high concentrations recorded at all monitoring posts in the northern hemisphere. You know, Canada, United States, Mexico. But it's worse than that. You're talking about the entire planet. You know, if you put me on national TV in a debate with any nuclear expert, I will burn them. I will burn their credibility immediately. There's nobody out there in the nuclear industry can do the public relation routine against me in a public debate and come out on top. In fact, their families will disown them when they get home. And my contempt for the pro-nuclear community is complete. I hate everything about these degenerates. So this is a plume model. Look at the plume continuously coming out of Fukushima, continuously coming out of Fukushima, continuously coming out, looping around, continuously coming out. And this is based on 31 days. We're at day 20 right now. The whole planet will look like this, look. Like an invisible snowstorm. That's why I put that stuff there. To try to drive the point home. Because I don't understand why this world is not fighting back. I always felt that within 5 years of me running these educational programs, I could sit back and retire. I always felt that. Clearly I'm an idiot. Name anybody out there new that brought up this topic and showed this information in the last decade. You can't, right? And even the bloggers that were active, that are no longer active, still wouldn't show this information. And John said, I don't believe it, how much and over what time between first getting exposure and death, maybe 50 years, if you eat nothing but Fukushima product. 50 years. So watch your young ones under 40 and under. So whoever wrote that story, if it's a male, I like to kick their balls right up into their throat, tell you the truth. Tokyo drinking water is unsafe for infants. So if it's unsafe for infant, they're not talking about 50 years. It's unsafe, so they gave them water, bottled water. UK government will not allow the sale of peaches if they were safe to eat. A UK killer hot particles. Sellafield coast like Chernobyl and Fukushima exclusion zone. There's nothing safe to eat in the United Kingdom post-wind scale. Nuclear meltdown. They closed 9,400 farms there after Chernobyl. Like the propaganda in the comments section of the peach stories. Great to see Harrods is one of the best depettos in the world. $50 per peach is actually good value. Fukushima peaches are probably the best in the world. Imagine how sadistic you got to be to write that one. Well, that's a picture of them right there, look. Glad to see her. It's one of the best in the world. But Isabel, who we covered earlier, piece of shit, said, please link these studies. I'd like to read them. For your information, the official International Atomic Energy report said this. So why would you link to the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is not an accredited governmental agency. These are an independent corporation like McDonald's. Why are you putting them over the value of everybody else? Why are you linking them? Because they're the perpetual liars, right? But think about this story here when they say there is no adverse side effects. The extreme increase in mortality is caused by cardiac diseases in Fukushima. The death rates might give the creeps to some people. Just we're only talking about dropping dead from heart attacks. In a single month, an abnormality, a spike, was an extra 12,700 people dropping dead compared with the same month of the year before. And then the death of cancers was through the skyrocket, and the number of people with cardiac diseases skyrocketed. And, you know, there was 865,000 cancers in the first year. 865,000 extra cancers. Not everybody got health care. Not everybody was diagnosed. Sometimes I'm humiliated with the human population on this planet. Fukushima resident here, I can assure you the products from here are fine. Really? With 50 atoms a kilogram, lead irreversible lesions in adults of vital organs. Would you want to take a chance with these particular attributes? And to give you context, you can put 200 million atoms / Beckles on the pin of a needle, but you can't see it. How are you gonna perceive 50? How does that work? I assure you can't, right? But the comment section went on and on and on. Being a scumbag just comes natural to the nuclear industry. It's the only thing they're good at. They're so good at that. They're just so good at being scumbags. People with money tend to be smart, and smart people know the science and know how to separate the wheat from the chaff. In this case, they're willing to put their money where their mouth is, and it's a rare trait in this modern world. A great example of consumer activists in the right direction. And the customers that buy this radioactive peaches also have the value added, the real bonus of helping an entire region trying to find its feet after a horrid ordeal, and they have fought skin and bones to try and survive in a nuclear wasteland. They should have been evacuated. And if they're too stupid to leave, that's too fucking bad for them. It's a big win if you can allow yourself to hear through the noise. Yeah, noise. What noise? I don't know anybody out there going against the nuclear industry, except for the couple of people that I happen to know that's been at it ever since. There's only just less than a handful of people. The whole fruit industry will win once they remember how well fruit are made here. The best in the world. And just had some muskrat from Yamanasa yesterday. Yum. These are people that I would love to kick the shit out of, and I'm not a violent person. And beating the shit out of them is not violence. You're doing the world a favor. You're a hero. Nuclear radiation is the most carcinogenic thing that exists. And a single atom in your body attacks it for the rest of your life with white blood cells. People seem happy enough to pay that amount, so good on them. At least the farmers from Fukushima can get some money after all the hardship they're facing, after all the people they murdered and the lives they destroyed, the millions and millions and millions and hundreds of millions of people they destroyed the health in the last decade. Hundreds of millions of people have their lives destroyed because of these shithead farmers. These moron farmers, these stupid, idiotic farmers. These sadistic morons. The government continues to hide the reality of their hardship while people from other prefectures rather not think about them and have all moved on while the people of Fukushima struggle on a daily basis. And the person who wrote that article is probably right there, huh? Pro-nuclear morons. The peaches are fine unless they're grown inside the nuclear power plant, in which case they're self-cooking, said Nifty. Really, there's evil and then there's the nuclear industry, and I don't think anything out there can compete with the evil of the nuclear industry. I really can't see any other evil that. And when you look at the entire legacy of the nuclear industry, all the dumping in the ocean, in the lakes and rivers and streams, in the local landfills, the true horror of what they got done, you have to write an encyclopedia type volume to articulate it. Pro-nuclear. She got an extra arm, so it's good, right? Japan baby formula showed radiation contamination the 6th of December 2011. Everything is contaminated. But see, Yahoo and the rest of them covered a story to try to dilute the facts, right? Because the story broke out, people were worried about it, all the media comes out then and regurgitates the public relation, the genocidal public relation firm's narrative. Its manufacturer said Tuesday Meiji, a major producer of milk, confectionery, and pharmaceuticals. And so giving the baby radioactive food, making them sick, and then selling them pharmaceuticals, right? That's what's going on. They're going to target those families, see, that are buying the milk. Containing small amount of radioactive cesium, and their numbers are 10 to 14 becquerels per pound, 22 to 31 per kilogram, compared with 200 becquerel legal limit. Just because there is no safe limit. You can have all the legal limits you want because everything is contaminated. That's why there's a legal limit, because every fucking thing is contaminated. Does that mean it's safe? Of course not. Does that mean you're going to get sick? Of course it does. Does that mean it's going to devastate the health of your children? And remember, the female population, especially children, are 4 times more vulnerable. This is why we have to protect the female population of all species. You're making a freaking big mistake not fighting this industry. Listen, I'm not angry, okay? I'm worried sick. Don't confuse my contempt for these people as anger, because it's not. It's what you're seeing is my disgust. It's my contempt of them. And I have every right, and I have an obligation, I'm obligated to say those words. I can't sugarcoat genocide. I don't know how to do that. I just don't know how to do that. The formula was produced at a factory in Sakura Prefecture, 200 kilometers from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. Yeah, Tokyo is 240 kilometers away. You have 29 million atoms per square meter. In Tokyo, metropolitan, 36 million people. And I'm back here doing this, and I'm so far from recovering. It's not funny, but I got no choice. If I don't do a show, I feel guilty that I didn't try. Where reactors were sent into meltdown, without giving it any prominence whatsoever. A journalist's job is to destroy you. A journalist's job is to make you incompetent, make you incapable, make you irrational. So you can't have a conversation with anybody. So when you talk about a reactor into a meltdown, the radioactive fallout from Chernobyl closed 9,400 farms in Ireland, Scotland, and the United Kingdom, but never closed the farms anywhere in Japan. With 38 reactor cores melting down, and each one was equal to 100 Chernobyls. These reactors sent into a meltdown, as if everybody understands what a meltdown would. Never give you a picture. never give you an ability to comprehend it, never give you any context. Just, ha-ha, I'm evil and I know it. That's what a journalist looks in the mirror and they smile and dance. There's enough radiation released from just one of these reactors to poison every species on the planet. There's 38 reactor cores melted down at the one time. You need to wake up. You need to have a conversation. I provide you with just an absurd amount of documentation for so long. The company says it suspects cesium, which is a British narrative, but stressed the exact cause of the contamination was not clear. And the announcement will add to the unease in Japan over food safety, particularly for small children, with a significant proportion of the public mistrustful of official pronouncements of radiation. Well, when you say that that's just a meltdown instead of meltdowns, when there's 4 reactors and 8 fuel pools lost their entire inventories, how should we treat you, you disgusting maggots? The government has previously declared many food items safe to eat, including the rice produced in the nuclear wasteland after multiple nuclear meltdowns that are still melting down. It's not after the nuclear disaster. That nuclear disaster will never end. The emissions will never end. You can't contain it anymore. It's gone deep into the earth on top of that. But you already lost a horrific amount of the inventory. Like, there's worthless societies. The most worthless society is the nuclear industry. The most dangerous society, the biggest threat to humanity, period, is radioactive fallout from 1,000 fuel pools worldwide and the 80 years of emissions, including the nuclear war they had for decades. Oh yeah, that's right, you call it a nuclear test, right? It's the same weapon, same radioactive fallout. You really think because it's a nuclear test it didn't cover the whole planet? Because there's a lot of people out there, that's the argument they had with me. Well, Dana, that was a nuclear test. Hey, stupid, it's the same bomb. And no radioactive contamination has been detected in any of its other products. Again, how is that possible when the whole country is one great big blanket of radioactive fallout death? Fukushima mushrooms still as high as 102,000 atoms a kilogram, but they're only measuring gamma. They're not measuring alphas or neutrons or betas or X-rays. We see that over and over, don't we? And this was 2014, not 2011, like the previous story of the baby formula. Cesium. How come you're only measuring cesium shit for brains? So this is important though. Food like mushrooms and wild berries. It doesn't matter if they're wild. Any kind of berry, any kind of mushroom. Like suggesting that only the wild ones, the ones in the supermarket, are going to be just as radioactive. And wild games, not just wild games, any kind of meat whatsoever is going to be highly contaminated. Not just wild, anything out in the wild. The farmers' fields are all okay, are they? You shit for brains. Moron. So this problem is northeast Japan is unlikely to go away anytime soon. It won't go away for many, many thousands of generations. But we won't last that because we contaminated everybody and everything. All the water on your planet is irradiated and tritiated. All of it. But it's not just your typical tritium, I can tell you that much. High levels of radiation showing up in sea in Fukushima residents. Again, flying in the face of TEPCO's claim, TEPCO, which was nationalized by the Japanese government right away, because they went bankrupt, because they're on the stock market, that's how it plays. So this is the narrative from the Japanese government, which are just despicable scum. The Japanese government are scumbags, clearly. Some Fukushima residents, based on their location after the meltdowns, received large radiation doses in the range of 3 times the national limit. 3 times! And they're 30 kilometer zone, not the 20 kilometer evacuation zone. Well, let me put that. I just disrespect a journalist to the point now where I can't stand them. I can't stand them. These are serial killers. They actually look like they're nice people, but they are not nice people. They got nothing to do with nice. They don't know what the word nice is. Nice to them is a big laughing joke. Let me see if I can find a better way to explain it to you. It's like, it's not hard. If you're honest, it's not that hard to tell the story. It's hard to comprehend why the world is not awake. Why the world is still pretending. Because you're not going to win this battle without fighting back. And right now, you're on the losing side of the battle if you're not fighting back. If you had 100 people doing what I'm doing, the industry falls apart immediately. Let me see what I got here. Almost there. My apologies. Some days I get upset, right? I apologize. Local Tokyo official became clear the radiation came further south than we thought. While at the nursery school, with kids rolling in radioactive dust and tasting the radioactive dust. Reuters attained a secret Tokyo evacuation. Fukushima reactors fail as the spent fuel rods melt, mix with cement, and fall into the buildings. 230,000 atoms per square meter in Tokyo. These are absurd numbers we never even conceived pre-Fukushima meltdowns. Government session reveals 400,000 times normal radioactive xenon-133. There is no red normal. It's a very short half-life. But if you got that number there, then you're going to have the same number in curium isotopes. And curium isotopes will live for tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years. Don't lose their energy. And you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. Thicker lead shielding. And the plutonium killed all the dogs in all the research experiments of multiple tumors. Strontium-90, 245 kilometers away, 150 times background. 24,000 becquerels a kilogram radioactive cesium in the soil, 250 kilometers. 22,000 locations in Fukushima with strontium. So it's not surprising Yokohama, 250 kilometers away. 300 times more radiation released to the atmosphere from burning radioactive debris than claimed by the government. So the government claimed really high numbers, but it's actually 300 times more than that. And you can't get rid of the garbage in Tokyo because it's so radioactive. And if you burn it, you can't get rid of the ashes because you're talking about 70,000 atoms a kilogram of just gamma. You can't get rid of the sewage. You're talking about, in the first year, it was 50,000 one-ton bags of sewage in around Tokyo that you couldn't get rid of because it's too radioactive. You can't get rid of the sediment from the water filtration facilities because it's too radioactive. Which normally was used for fertilizer. You can't get rid of that. I mean, that means everything is radioactive when you've seen those particular attributes, right? Fukushima radioactivity of 40 billion atoms a kilogram alongside the road. Hot part equals 400 kilometers away. Hot spots spreading. Government to check radiation up to 460 kilometers from the meltdown. 600 kilometers in Osaka. High levels of cesium. Again, every time you see cesium, you really should spit in a scientist's face every time you see him. Because if they weren't cowards, they would do that to you and say they hate you. Like, what did it? Who the hell was that? What did it do? Oh, that was a nuclear scientist. Oh, well, that's normal. They hate everything anyway. New contamination map shows cesium-137 deposits 900 kilometers from Fukushima. Well, we know in South Korea they had hot spots at a 1,000-time background. And then the next administration denied there was any radioactive fallout, but we have the documentation from the previous administration. September 9, 2011, high levels of radiation showing up in the sea and Fukushima residents. Researchers estimate radiation levels in the area during the 2 months before the evacuation came to 50 millisieverts. Why would you measure the millisieverts in these communities? You're not by the reactors, so you should be measuring it in physical. You're talking about 50,000 microsieverts. So take 50,000, multiply it by 750 atoms, and then multiply that by 600 to get the actual numbers we're talking about. I mean, we're talking catastrophic numbers, right? Some residents received doses to 57 to 69 millisieverts. 57,000 to 69 to 70,000 microsieverts. Some parts of Fukushima City read at 3.2 microsieverts, yet the city's trying to go on as business as normal. Well, it didn't, 300,000 people there. Every building there is entitled to be decontaminated, but you can't decontaminate a building. Researchers at the International Atomic Energy Agency have done their own estimate. These are monsters, literally monsters. And estimated at sea during the release during the early months found levels at 15,000 trillion atoms. 15,000 trillion atoms. Well, a gram of cesium. Let me bring it up, actually, so it makes some sense for you. Because you're only talking about a few pounds is what they're saying. And there's 6 million pounds lost out of each building. Okay, hang on, I got it. I just want you to really, so you got something that you can work with instead of just propaganda, perpetual, despicable propaganda. The whole story is heartbreaking, but that don't mean we haven't got to tell it, right? So bioaccumulation is your biggest enemy number one. So Becquerel, which is like an atom pulsing energy almost at the speed of light. And a Curie is 37 billion of those atoms. And so how many Curies are in a gram? So you got strontium-90 is 140 Curies. And strontium-90, after the first 1,000 days and for tens of thousands of days, is produced at a ratio of 100 to 1 of cesium-137. And cesium-137, say 88 Curies per gram. Okay. So it's 88 times 37 billion. So let me bring the math up for you first. Bring up the poll, I guess. First. Should nuclear power plants, radioactive fallout, be considered a biological weapon of mass destruction, which is what doctors in the 40s and 50s described radioactive fallout as a biological weapon. Okay, so you got 37 billion. I just want to give you an example of how this industry, particularly the International Atomic Energy Agency, works. So 37 billion times 88. This is how many anthropogenic man-made atoms are in a gram. 3 trillion, 256,000. So when you're talking about 15,000 trillion atoms, 15,000 trillion, it doesn't work out to very many pounds. And when you're talking about buildings that actually ejected their reactor cores and eight reactor cores in the fuel pools out of the buildings, and each building had around 9 reactor cores, you're talking at least 6 million pounds in each building are gone. And then you only acknowledge, because 15 trillion is still an awful amount. That's still an awful, awful, awful amount. 15,000 trillion atoms. Again, typically they're only, and see, they talk about physical atoms here, but up there they're talking about microsieverts and millisieverts, rather. And millisieverts are not very helpful when you're talking about nuclear accidents. And these are a typical estimate of 4,720 trillion atoms, which is still jack shit when you think about the entire inventories that were actually lost, because you can't look at that and say that the inventory is still there, so where is it? It was released into the environment, and its effects upon everything with replicating cells is catastrophic. It's catastrophic. Radioactive spike in Norwegian reindeer and sheep, October 25th, 2014. Japanese tests find radiation in infant food. Let me just get rid of everything we've already done here, because I can't keep up with it if I don't do certain things. And that's how it works around here. Is we are a clearinghouse for documentation, right? For information. And then you get the added bonus of me articulating it and extrapolating from it. That's about the same as last night. I can't do any more night because I'm going to scream in frustration and just heartbreak at what's going on. I will come back tomorrow night. If you made it this far, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And because I changed the headlines about a half an hour before we went live, James Lucett's newest song it's in the chat room, but that's going to disappear when the video is over. So after the video, I'm going to take his link and put it just below the description, so you can hear his newest song he's got in the competition. But I'm going to play our favorite song of all time. And there's a lot of people out there that really, really like this song. It's really something. And this is a song James Lucett put together originally about one of our nemesis, one of our shithead nemesis, what we affectionately call Calm Down Charlie. But is an absolute degenerate piece of shit, a lowest form of life imaginable, named Yoshito Mashata. And so this song was dedicated to him, me, and you. And we're going to close the poll down first, of course. Let's close the poll. Should degenerate nuclear power plants, radioactive fallout, be considered a biological weapon of mass destruction? And absolutely, positively, unequivocally, Dana, yes. Well, thank you very much. May I have another? So I'm really happy we got 3 shows in the week. We got 3 shows in this week. Is it 3 shows? Oh, my goodness. And so I'm going to try to do a show tomorrow night and another show on Thursday. Try to get back into the swing of it. I still haven't recovered, but I'm going to go kick the shit out of myself tomorrow and do all that work, because we bought all the stuff this week. Thank goodness. And tomorrow's the last hot day we got. And so I'm just going to take my time, spend all day. I'll get out early before the heat shows up and get the grinding, because I'm using... I upgraded from the typical, instead of using grinding disc, I'm using flap disc. And I'm not using your typical flap disc. They're fine, by the way. I'm using the silicone flap disc. They do a much better job. But you got to watch, you don't breathe that stuff in, obviously, right? And I got the equipment for that, full face respiratory equipment for that, so I'll be wearing that tomorrow. I got a little bit of welding to get done, but I might save that for the next day. And I did pick up another trailer a couple of weeks ago. I don't think I mentioned it. It's an old beat up aluminum trailer. I got it for nothing, so I grabbed it, right? And next spring, I'm going to start fixing that one up. And maybe sell it, right, or something. Because once you fix them up, I do have good reasons to keep it, so who knows, I might do that. But right now we're doing okay when it comes to trailers. We're in good shape. So I'm going to play this song. This is another James Lewis song. We're playing this regularly for a closing song. And I'm just not going to be talking over it because people get upset with me when I do that. Because it's a great song. I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you have a great night. And we'll see everybody tomorrow night at the same time.
In the Tokyo Bureau, swirling smoke and neon beams. Chicago division, fueled by heated dreams. Calm down, Charlie calls in, voice smooth as silk. Says, Dana, you're dreaming, don't cry over spilt milk. On Dana Durnford show, the chatter's turning wild. But Charlie shoots it down with that cool cat style. Unit 3's no killer, no harm to see life. He chuckles in the static, cuts through the strife. Oh, calm down, Charlie, with his nuclear charm. He says starfish are just fine, there's no alarm. His words dance on airwaves with a confident glow. Calm down, Charlie steals the whole radio show. With a snap and a grin, Charlie's voice so clear scatters the dread, dispels all the fear. Mux didn't hurt, he croons with a sigh. Science is for thinkers, not a whim or lie. Though Dana and the crowd may shout and roar, Charlie's unfazed, he's heard it all before. His swinging rationale, like a soothing song, says, hold on to logic, we gotta stay strong. Oh, calm down, Charlie, with his nuclear charm. He says starfish are just fine, there's no alarm. His words dance on airwaves with a confident glow. Calm down, Charlie steals the whole radio show.